Okay. So, hello everyone, and welcome to this session of Let Us Talk It webinar. And we are extremely happy and grateful that you took out time this afternoon to join our Let Us Talk It webinar. And all of you who have joined in on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, we welcome you as well. And we hope that if you feel it's beneficial, if you have any question during the session, please feel free to write in the comments so that we will take up your questions at the end of the session. And if you have any feedback, please do give that as well. And we do this every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 12 to 1 p.m. EST. And if you want to be a speaker, if you want to present, or you want to attend a webinar, please email us at webinar@letustalkit.com. And with that, we begin our session today. And for today's topic, we have building successful relationships. Very, very important, and I feel an integral part of our life. So, dealing with difficult people in the workplace as well as in life can take its own toll. During this event, during this session, our speaker provides a roadmap for managing conflict and building stronger, more meaningful relationships with the people you work with and serve. And to present today's webinar, we have with us a very hardworking, I would say, speaker, and I'll tell you why. Eric Williamson. Eric is the author of the book How to Work with Jerks, and also the president and CEO of Tailored Training Solutions, who for 20 years has helped IT leaders create a workplace culture where employees are engaged, valued, and developed into leaders. He is often referred to as the connector for his ability to make his message resonate with groups, or as the change maker for his ability to bring out the best in people. And as you remember, I said he was a very hardworking speaker. The reason why I say is that when I approached him to invite him to be a guest speaker, he almost was so involved. I mean, he asked for two more sessions to know more about the company, to tailor his session accordingly to what the needs of the people that work here. So it was very involved, and he has taken out so much of time and effort to do this session. So we are extremely honored and grateful, Eric, and extremely happy to have you as a speaker. Over to you, Eric.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That was so thoughtful of you. And yes, I love to work hard, especially when I'm sharing an important message to people that can definitely relate to this topic called building successful relationships. And I have a question that I want you all to think about. And
Just 1 second, Eric. Sorry to interrupt. I am hearing you very low. Is it same with others, or is it okay?
Yeah, it is very low.
Yeah, my sound was okay, right?
Yeah, your sound was a lot better. Yeah.
Okay, Eric, can you please check on your microphone?
sure, how about now?
No, it's still low.
Okay, one second. Hold on.
Yeah, somebody with V said can't hear
My
Eric. Yeah.
apologies. Okay.
Yeah, it was just fine when we were talking. Um, I don't know what happened.
Okay. Hold on for a sec. Just give me one moment to.
Yeah, maybe
Hold on. Just one second. I'm going
just
to
mute and unmute.
change. Okay, can you all hear me okay right now? All hear me okay right now?
Yeah, but it's like both your sounds are on, so we are hearing twice,
You all hear
two
me okay
times.
right now? Hello?
Yes, it's too loud, and we are hearing you two times, Eric, because your both the microphones are on. Yeah, can you talk now?
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
Is that better?
Yeah, can you mute the other one, please?
Sure. Okay, how about now?
Yeah, perfect, perfect.
Okay.
Can you lower the volume a little bit? It's like too loud.
Okay. How about
No. Yeah, this is good.
is that
Go
good?
ahead. Yeah, yeah, good.
Okay. You probably see a couple images of me. I'm appreciate you all bearing with me as I navigate through some of the technical issues. I wish I had one of you available to to help me out here, but some of those things kind of happen when you're trying to start when you're doing something. I'm sure some of you can relate. Um, so where was I? All right. So sometimes when I talk to folks in the IT world or in other places, when I ask people the question, you know, what is the biggest challenge when it comes to building successful relationships? Oftentimes people say a variety of things. They say things like, "Oh well, managing. I have difficulty getting along with my project manager because, their personality, it just clashes with mine, or this person's just too mean. They're a micromanager, or my boss is just, he's just short and abrasive, or this person has a different communication style, and that can kind of get in our way when we're trying to get things done. And so today, by the end of today's workshop, today's webinar, you're going to take away some valuable tips that's going to help you not only manage relationships with the people that you work with and serve, but also it's going to help you manage the stress that's associated with not only dealing with other people, but all of the nuances in the IT world when you have rapidly changing in the rapidly changing IT environment. So, as was explained, my name is Eric Williamson, and I am a professional development consultant. And so, my interest kind of falls in between the intersection of professional development, emotional intelligence, and leadership development. And I work with IT professionals to help them manage relationships with the people that they work with and that they serve, to help you so that you can focus more on the work itself and manage the stress that's accompanied with the ever-changing IT environment. And so today I'm going to be sharing with you a few things
Eric, are you sharing your
I
screen?
want to discuss. Hold on, let me just make sure. Where's my PowerPoint? Sharing screen.
Yeah, if you can share the screen.
Okay. Now, sometimes when we talk about building successful relationships,
We
excuse me, can
can't
you
he- No, we can't see your screen. We can't see your screen.
Okay. All right. 1 second. Wow, Julian, I think I might have jinxed us because everything was just all good right from before. Let's try this now. How about now? Can you see my screen?
It's coming. It's coming.
Okay. Let's try this again.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Okay. The
Okay,
best
so
worst
you're
person you
probably
ever
seeing
worked
me
for.
in one screen and navigating through the slide in the other, so it might look a little bit weird. But what I was trying to say is sometimes when we talk about building successful relationships, sometimes we think about either the very best or the very worst person that we ever encountered. And this kind of influences our ability to build those kind of relationships. Like, for example, when we talk about the very best type of people that we ever worked with, it's probably fair to say that these people, they motivate us to go above and beyond the call of duty, right? We're willing to go the extra mile just to help that person out. If someone comes to you that you admire, that you like, you would categorize them as one of the very best people. They might come to you and they might say, "Hey, look, Julian, can you please help me, with this assignment here, or can you please check in on this situation?" And if you really like them, you might say something like, "Sure, no problem, absolutely, it'll be my pleasure." And not only will we do that work for them, we might say things like, "Is there anything more I can do for you? Do you have any other questions?" Or we might give additional information or set context because we want them to succeed and we want to help them. We want to be able to add value for those types of people. But the very worst kind of people, it's not the case, is it? We're not willing to go above and beyond the call of duty for these types of people, right? We're not willing to go the extra mile. As a matter of fact, it reminds me of a situation that I experienced several years ago when I was working for a company. And one day I was pretty new at the job and I was at my desk and I had this boss she was more than a micromanager. I think she was a narcissist. And she would love to name drop her title. She would say things like, "Well, as your director, I need you to do this. Well, as your boss, I want you to do that." And it was very intimidating. And this one day, I'm sitting at my desk. I am typing away. I have to put this report together for our executives that are coming to town. And my boss is literally standing over my shoulder, looking at me and telling me what information to put in and what information to leave out. And I just couldn't believe it. She would say, "No, Eric, don't put that information in there. Leave that out." And so I came across some information as I was putting this report together that I knew our executives wanted to hear about because they just talked about it in a memo the week prior. And so I had the gumption and I took the initiative to include that information in the report. And my boss, my director at the time, looked at what I was typing and said, "No, what are you doing? No, no, take that information out." And I said to her, "Well, boss, I think our executives going to want to know this information. They just talked about it the other day." And she tapped me on my shoulder and she said, "You look up at me." And I looked up at her and she said, "You work for me. And as your director, I'm telling you to leave that information out." Do you think I left that information out? I hope you're nodding your head. Yes, I did. I left that information out. I was just doing what my boss told me to do. I was fairly new at the job. I said, "Sure, I'm going to follow her orders." So lo and behold, when the executives come to town, they're all meeting. The three executives and my director are meeting at the conference suite, and it's a big, long table. It's only four people there sitting there talking, and they're going over the report. And I'm sitting at my desk doing another assignment until I get a call from the executive conference suite, and it's my boss on the call. And she says, "Eric, I'd like you to come in here into the executive conference suite. I have a question. We need to talk to you about the report." I said, "Okay, maybe they're really interested in some of the information that I had to share." So I walk in there, and before I even step 2 feet into the inside the room, my boss said, "Eric, our executives were wondering where this information is in this report. It's not in there. I want you to go back to your desk and I want you to put that information in and don't come back until you have it complete." Let me tell you something, folks. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe she would say that to me. I felt completely embarrassed. And on top of that, I stood in that doorway for at least 20 seconds with my mouth wide open like this because I couldn't believe that she would sit over there and she completely threw me under the bus. Not only did she throw me under the bus, she backed up and went again and threw me and ran right over me. And so sometimes when I ask people, "What would you do in this situation?" people will say, "Oh, well, I would throw her under the bus." I would say things like, "Oh, you mean the information you told me to leave out?" Or maybe talk to her afterwards and tell her how upset I was. Well, those are all pretty good ways to come back and address that situation, but I didn't do anything. I was so new and embarrassed and just didn't know how to respond. I just continued to do my work. But I tell you what, after that situation, I faced with, the first thing is I was going to quit. I really considered quitting. And not because I didn't like the company, but because I didn't like my boss. You all know the saying, right? People don't leave Companies, they leave what? They leave bad bosses. And that's what I was facing. And that's what most of Americans do these days. They quit because they don't like the people that they work with. Now, see, the other option I faced was, well, actually, this is another slide I want to share with you. I'm sure you all are familiar with the technology sector, and it's got one of the highest turnover rates. So some of you may be able to um, to relate to some of this. But the other option that I faced was I became disengaged. I said, you know what? Why bother? Why bother doing my best? They kick me when I'm down. So I faced being disengaged, which is actually worse than leaving the company because these are the people that are doing the bare minimum to get by. And if you didn't know, there's 60% of Americans right now are disengaged in today's workforce. And this was before COVID. These people are just doing just the bare minimum to get by. So that way they can stay out of their boss's radar and outside of their crosshairs. But the other fact is this lack of engagement translates to over $450 billion in lost productivity. Can you imagine that? That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money involved, and that's work that people aren't doing. People just like you who have difficulty getting along with your boss or your colleagues and just are just too stressed out to want to even manage that relationship because you have to focus on the work itself. It's a lot to bear. And I'm sure that some of you may be able to relate to some of these images that I'm sharing right now. Because when you see these images, I'm sure there's a special name that you like to call these kind of people that make you feel this way. Some of these names are probably things you would, if you were in the office, you would probably say on your way to work. You would probably say things, when you're in the car, and you would probably call this person a specific name. And that name is probably something you not suitable for today's live webinar, because I'm not going to go there. But for the sake of today's discussion, why don't we just refer these people as jerks? Now, I'm curious, what are some examples of jerks that you have encountered? And if Julan, if you see anybody writing in the chat, if you wouldn't mind just interjecting and providing some of those comments, that would be great.
Absolutely. As soon as they start writing, I'll be telling you what they are writing.
Okay, great, thank
So
you.
attendees, you can
Now, I've
start.
heard of jerks as being micromanagers or narcissists or people who might just try to throw you underneath the bus, all types of things. And these kind of people, they really affect our ability to get stuff done. And so today, we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we get into that, let's just be real here. Jerks existed well before COVID-19, before the pandemic hit, before we had to, be sheltered in place and telework from home. And I'm not sure if everyone is still doing that. I know there have been some changes in some of the developments. But now that we're in the midst of this pandemic, now it's even harder to build relationships. It's even harder to build relationships with the people you don't like, with the jerks that we just talked about. For example, we've got additional barriers now. We talk via Zoom. We pick up the phone, we call people. We do all types of things other than that face-to-face because that's not here anymore. We have all this kind of anxiety, fear, and doubt about our loved ones who may have been impacted by this pandemic. And that takes its toll because it makes it hard to focus on your own job. We have to social distance, and let's not even get into some of the social unrest that we've experienced during the spring and summer seasons. So it's a lot to deal with, and all these issues happened before the trouble building successful relationships, but now it's even worse. The circumstances have made that. And so today we're going to talk about how to manage emotions and diffuse tense situations. We're going to talk about how to build engagement and team synergy. We're also going to talk about how to build trust and gain influence in the work. And most importantly, we're going to talk about how to communicate with clarity. But before we do that, I want to have a quick conversation with you to talk about just who these jerks are and why they exist in the workplace. I also want to talk about the impact that these relationships have on the workplace. And once I talk about the strategies for implementing these successful relationships, I want to talk about the benefits for implementing these strategies. So my question to you is, what is a jerk? And feel free to engage in the chat room if you have an idea of what a jerk is. I'd be interested in knowing. And I'm not able to see any. Oh, trying to overboss. Oh yeah, that's a great one. Thank you very much for sharing that. Trying to overboss, meaning I'm more than a boss. I am an overboss, which means that you have to respond to me morning, noon, and night, and you can't eat any meals until you're done with your work. And I need to know everything you're doing at every time of the day. Right? That sounds like an overboss to me. And let me tell you something. When I wrote this book, How to Work with Jerks, Getting Stuff Done with People You Can't Stand, I solicited feedback from all types of people. Not only did I solicit feedback from IT professionals, I went to coffee shops. I talked to my friends, my neighbors, my family members, and I said, what is a jerk to you? And I had pages and pages of definitions of. I realized I couldn't put all that information into my book. No one's going to read it. No one wants to read a War and Peace novel, right? You really want to read something that's going to be easy to condense. So it
And
took
we
me
have
some
one
time
more.
to figure out
Uh,
what a
yeah.
jerk is. And I came up with this definition. And that's this. A jerk is someone who doesn't use social skills as a necessary job skill. Now, I want to emphasize the word necessary because some people think that social skills is the best thing to have. It's a good thing to be pleasant sometimes, or it's good to communicate with people. It's good to have good to interact with people effectively. That's good, but it's not a necessity. That's wrong. It's always necessary. It's always necessary to demonstrate social skills because social skills allow you to clearly and concisely convey your message to your audience, sometimes in a non-combative way or non-adversarial, but allows you to get your message across to that person so that way they understand exactly your position and exactly what we need to do in order to get to the next step. And so this, you all may appreciate this, but here's an interesting fact. Employers nowadays, they are looking for uniquely human skills. These are the kind of social skills that I'm referring to. They're looking for these kind of skills because as jobs get increasingly automated, especially in the IT world, they are looking for qualities such as the ability to interact, to listen, to communicate, because these kind of things can't be replaced through automation. So this is something that you all need to be very aware of, especially in the IT world, where automation is kind of in lockstep with IT. As automation continues to replace certain skills, these kind of social skills are things that can't be replaced, which means that if you can achieve strong social skills, you are in high demand wherever you go. Now, there are two types of jerks. There are jerks who are unaware that they are jerks, meaning that this is all they learn. Or maybe they don't have the awareness, they lack the self-awareness that they're acting like a jerk or they're being an overboss or any of the other comments that we've heard. And then there's a boss that there are jerks that who are aware, but they just don't care. Meaning they know that they're a jerk, but this is how they get stuff done. They can lead through fear and intimidation, and because they can intimidate you, that means you're going to do exactly what they say. So these people are very aware that they're being a jerk. Just quickly, I can tell you the first time I ran into a jerk, and I was sitting in my all white Pontiac Grand Am, staring at myself in the rear view. So just briefly, I'll just tell you a time where I became a jerk. You see, when I graduated from college, I was brimming with confidence. Not only did I graduate from college with honors, I got the very first job I applied to. And so I thought that was going to translate into the real world, into the real job. And once I went into my job, I was assigned a mentor. And those of you who have ever had a mentor know that a mentor is designed to help you do your job effectively well so that you can someday work independently, sooner rather than later. But see, that's not how I saw it. I saw it as my boss, my mentor, trying to tell me how to do my job. She would say things like, "No, Eric, don't do it this way. Do it that way. No, 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 no. That's not the right way. If you do it this way, you get a better result." So I would look at her and said, "What are you doing telling me how to do my job? Don't you know that I graduated with honors? Don't you know that I'm very capable of getting my job done?" That's what I said to her. Do you think my mentor was inclined to help me do my job? No. Matter of fact, she wanted nothing to do with me. And neither did the people at work. I remember this guy named Charlie. He was the most senior person at the job. And rumor had it that Charlie was going to retire one day, soon. And he came up to me on my first few weeks on the job and he introduced himself to me. He said, "Hi, Charlie, my name is Eric. Nice to meet you." And I looked at him and I said, "Hi, Charlie. I guess I'm here to replace you." Charlie, that was the last time he smiled. He's changed that smile and he turned it upside down. And I was rude to just about everyone I came in contact with, even the customers that I served. And I thought I was going to be doing fine until one day my boss summoned me to his office. And he said, "Eric, I've gone by your desk and you've got a stack of paper almost as tall as you. I've been receiving some very bad messages from our customers, from the fellow employees, from your colleagues. And I'm questioning whether or not you can even do the job. I mean, poor Charlie hasn't smiled since the day you arrived. I'm sorry, but if you can't turn things around now, I'm going to have to let you go." Can you imagine that? Someone who's recently graduated from college with honors that was this close to getting fired? I almost fell right on my face and started crying. And I was sobbing and I was about to leave my boss's office. And he said, "But wait a second, I'm going to help you out here. There's an emotional intelligence course that I want you to take. And I think it'll help you out with your current job." And don't get me wrong, he was not encouraging me to take this emotional intelligence course. He was voluntelling me. He voluntold me to do this, take this course. So I had no choice. So I took this introductory course and I was blown away. It made me realize all the dumb stuff that I was doing to the people I was working with and the clients that I served. And that's where I found myself staring in my Pontiac Grand Am. And that's when I said to myself, "Wow, I am a jerk." Now that's how I became a jerk. And there are other reasons why people act like jerks. For example, people act like jerks because they're just incompetent. They just don't know what it is that they're doing and they take it out on other people. And for some people, it's stress. For example, some of you may relate to this. Your job doesn't end when your work hours. Some of you continue working beyond. Some of you have family and you're still working while you're at home, off of work hours, outside of work hours. And this creates stress. It stresses out all of your family relationships and you can't even be able to be in the moment with your family. Some of you can be physically affected by this stress, being irritable, acting short, lashing out, all of that stuff. Some of you may just feel like you're overwhelmed, too much work. How about the pressure that it takes to keep up with the pace and technology and all of the changes that you encounter in the IT world? That's a lot to deal with. You may be very in tuned or know the Java or know any of those IT terminologies or name any of those applications extremely well. And then the next day you got to learn something completely different. You have to unlearn what you knew and learn something completely different. And it's competitive. So that means that it could be that's another degree of stress and feeling overwhelmed. It's just too much to bear sometimes. Some of it is a learned behavior. That's all you know. And lastly, it could be fear of losing your job. You have to keep up with this IT, with all the IT nuances going on, because you can lose your job if you can't compete with the next person. Now, there are many other circumstances. In my book, I identify four. And with the sake of time, I'm going to talk about two of these circumstances that create difficulty for working with jerks or just building successful relationships. And here's the first one: lack of training and preparation. Now, this causes a lot of ongoing anxiety and conflict because some of us just don't have the social skills needed to manage the conflict or interact socially. And this happens in college grads, like my situation. It could also happen with new and experienced employees where you usually need another person to help you out and manage that conflict. And also, with this COVID situation, we have to adapt to it. And we've been under this situation for about 6 months. So, those of you who are still working from home have to be able to understand how to work autonomously, understand some of the things that you need to communicate with your colleagues or your boss remotely, understand and anticipate those kind of issues and be able to bring them and initiate that to the forefront without having someone bring it out of you. We have to learn how to communicate virtually. We have to understand the best method of communicating virtually. So, for example, if I read someone's email that says, thanks a lot, I really appreciate it, depending on how I'm feeling that day, I may look at that comment on email and think, hey, was this person being sarcastic? Was this person acting short to me? I can interpret that comment a million different ways. So does that mean that I need to pick up the phone? Does that mean I need to do a Zoom call? You have to question all those kind of things and figure out the best method of communicating. And so when we have this kind of lack of training and preparation, that's where organizations contact me to help provide some of these training tips to help you be able to manage that conflict with the people that you're working with so that way you can build those relationships effectively well. And here's the other: technology. Now, look, I know I'm kind of going against the grain here because I'm talking to a lot of IT folks here, but sometimes this gets in the way of our ability to manage relationships because we're focused on too much technology. And I love technology, despite what happened earlier for the first few minutes when we had some technical difficulty with me trying to present. But let me just give you an example. You see these images here. Some of us are just glued to our smartphones 24/7. And it's common that that's the new normal. And we get fatigued and we get angry about our job never being done. Never always, we can never say that we're completely done with our work because we're always tied to our phones. And when we're tied to our phones, it removes us from the face-to-face connection from that we were used to. Technology has done that. So has the pandemic. So we can't interpret the body language and some of the other things that we can do to kind of bridge the gap. And so it really hurts us when we're doing performance reviews, when we're having those tough situations over the phone where we have to discuss performance or the progress of a project, right? It makes it really hard to really interpret more than that actual verbal message. So technology is great, but we got to have the right balance. So I discussed some of the circumstances. So what can we do to build better, more successful relationships? Well, let me tell what people have done in the past. Some people said, you know what, I'm just going to quit and get a new job, right? And you know what? Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Sometimes you have to, if the job is way too toxic for you, you can't continue to endure it. But just keep in mind this: if you quit your job and you move on to another job, you are almost praying or crossing your fingers that you will not run into another toxic situation. Meaning that's just a band-aid. You may encounter a jerk. You may encounter tough-minded people who have different personalities. And what are you going to do? Are you going to quit and get another job? At some point, you're going to have to learn how to manage the situation. And so that's why people can be unsuccessful doing that. You can't always just quit and get another job. We don't always have that luxury. And at some point, we're going to have to face these situations. Some people think, oh, well, I'll just have my HR department interfere and mediate the situation. Now, look, I have nothing against HR, but if you know HR like I do, sometimes it could take a while to resolve a situation, which means that you're still working with the person, you're still in that situation, and it could just be unbearable. And that's where this book comes into play because then you can acquire the situation immediately. So here's the first tip that I want to share with you. The first thing is called recognition. Now, have you ever felt a certain way and didn't know why? Well, recognition is your ability to understand what you're feeling and what's causing you to feel that way. And it helps posed and it helps you stay focused so that way you can make better and more informed decisions. So, how can you practice? Well, here are a couple tips for you. You can ask for informal feedback. So, for example, if you're talking with your project team or you're talking with your boss and something and you're leading a discussion, right? Maybe you might want to ask some of your peers, say, "Hey, how did I deliver that presentation? Or how did that sticky situation go? Did I say the right things? Did I offend anyone?" Because when you do that, that will help you understand and check your blind spots. Another thing you can do is you can ask the question, what, not why. A lot of times when we ask the question why, for example, we're having difficulty getting along with people, the project isn't going well, we say things like, why is this happening to me? Why can't my partner, why can't my colleague understand what I'm saying? Why does this person always have to say this all the time? Or why? And when we ask those questions, why, we're not able to really get to the root of the problem. We're not able to move on. We're not able to solve the problem. So instead of asking the question, why, ask what instead. So, for example, what can I do differently for a better outcome? If you're having a performance review with your management and your manager gives you some really critical feedback, instead of asking the question, why is my boss saying this to me? Maybe you can say something like this. Try this. What can I do differently for a better outcome? Or what are the things I need for this project to succeed? That helps you proactively find solutions to those problems. Some other things you can do is you can write and think regularly on a regular basis. I use a bullet journal, and that helps me keep things on task. It helps me keep on track and understand exactly what it is that I need to get done day in and day out. And it helps me reflect and be more introspective about how my day went and how I interacted with other people. Another thing is maybe some of you are familiar with this is take a personality test. And yeah, disc assessments, those are great. There are plenty of Myers Briggs, those are great. One of the things I recommend is take a 360-degree assessment. This not only allows you to assess yourself, but it allows anonymous peers to provide you some critical feedback so that way you can get a well-rounded assessment of just really how you are. So definitely consider it. And here's the other practice the AAA method. Now, in my book, I identify this as assess, analyze, act. Now, it's a process to build better relationships with the people that you work with. So, if you're ever in a conflict or a tough situation, the first step you want to do is assess. You want to assess the situation, determine why you're stressed, determine what the factors are involved that are causing you to feel a certain way. So, this causes you to really be in tune with your body. Is your body are you is your mouth dry? Are you sweaty? Are your palms sweaty? Are you stuttering? Are you doing things like this? Or are you rolling your eyes? All those things mean is that your body is telling you something and is telling the other person something. So at the very first moment you feel like you're in a tough situation, you want to be able to assess yourself, you want to assess the situation, and you want to assess the other person. Once you're able to assess, you then want to analyze the situation. What's causing your body to feel this way? Are you stuck in traffic and you have to get to work because you have so many things to do? Are you managing too many competing priorities and you're just so overwhelmed? Or do you have too many things going on or you have to just keep up on too many different IT technologies that it's just overwhelming? Or are you just working well past your tour and you need to take a break? And then once you're able to analyze those situations, then you want to take the last step, which is step 3, act. Meaning that you can come up with a more prepared response and take a more measured approach to address the situation. Now, be truthful. How many of you in your ins and outs have just gone to step three and acted? Meaning, if someone acted short or abrasive, you just acted and just maybe said something rude back, or maybe sarcastic, or short or abrasive. Maybe you were stuck in traffic and someone cut you off and you just acted. You just responded in a not so, in an unkindly way. Well, if you take this three-step approach, it's going to force you to be able to really take the steps involved before you do something that you might regret. And let me just pause real quick before I get to the next thing and just check with Julan and just see, are there any comments in the chat room, anything I can address right now, and pause real quick.
No, I think somebody replied when you asked, how do you define jerk? Somebody said acts differently in front of boss. That's all that I see here. And yeah, nothing on the chat. So we are good to go.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
And so here's the next one. You may be familiar with this. It's called empathy. And this means not only to be in tune with what you're feeling, but what the other person's feeling. And that means that you have to seek it out. You have to seek and reflect on the thoughts and opinions of other people. It's just like one of my mentors, Stephen Covey, said. He said, before you could understand someone, before you can be understood, you have to seek first to understand. And that's what you need to do. You need to really seek out what that other person is going through. And here's some tips to help you do just that. The first thing is create a safe environment. Now, if anyone has ever read the book called The Culture Code, written by Daniel Coyle, excuse me, and he talked about this marshmallow spaghetti situation, competition where people were competing to see who could build the tallest structures out of marshmallows and spaghetti. And you had all different types of people participating. You had a bunch of you had some college students, you had adults, you had professionals, you even had little kids, 5-year-olds competing in this competition. Who do you think? And if you're thinking kids, yes, the kids did win. And some people say, oh, well, the kids won because, they didn't care, or because, they were more focused. And some of those things can be true. But when the adults were interviewed after the competition about why they lost, some of the people said, well, you know what? I didn't feel comfortable contributing to my group. I didn't want to be the one coming up with that dumb idea. I didn't want to be the person that was going to be ridiculed or criticized or being judged based on my responses for helping build that taller structure. So you know what I did? I decided not to contribute. I just let one or two people focus on building that taller structure. Now, when you ask the kids, they didn't care. They were running around, playing, they played tag, they were eating the marshmallows, eating the spaghetti, they tried to build it again, it fell, they built it again, and they just kept going back to it and building it again until they built this taller structure. And that's because they didn't care about being judged or criticized. They just wanted to have fun, and they just wanted to add value and innovation. And that's the same kind of technique, the same kind of thing we want to bring into the workplace. It's funny how things come back full circle. We want to create an environment where we're not criticized or judged on coming up with certain responses or ideas. And we want to promote that. And if you're interested in knowing how you can create a safe environment, just let me know. I'd be happy to help. The next thing you want to do is you want to empower, don't micromanage. Don't be like my boss. Like my boss told, the story I told you earlier today. You want to be able to give latitude. Latitude is gratitude. Give people the resources they need to come up with their own response and their own solutions. And the last thing is you want to listen, understand, and validate. I call this love. That's the acronym, love. Because once you're able to listen to someone else's point of view, validate or understand what they're going through, then you can validate that. And once you're able to see the other person's perspective, then that draws a connection. That's what helps bridges the gap. That's what helps builds the strong relationships with your peers and your colleagues and your project partners and your stakeholders. So look, those are the tips that I wanted to share. And if you'd like to continue to stay connected with me and learn about some of the tips and techniques that I can provide that I can help you do to not only work better with jerks, but build stronger relationships with the people that you work with and serve, you can contact me at my email address. You can visit my website for additional information. If you'd like a deep dive discussion, just contact me. Schedule a 15-minute conversation with me. I'd be more than happy to have a complimentary consultation to figure out how I can help you manage your relationships and improve your social skills. And I do all types of things. I train, I consult, I coach, I have online courses, I even have mastermind groups. So if you're interested in any of those things, if you want to take your expertise to the next level by managing your relationships with the people that you work with and serve, just contact me. And I have a very large presence on social media. The last thing I want to share with you is that, look, you all are very talented and gifted. I did a lot of research on you all, and as Julan said, I did invest a lot of time in getting to know my audience. And one thing is very clear, and that's you are all very smart, very experienced. I'm sure you have many different types of can share many different types of expertise. But just know this: no matter how talented, gifted, or experienced you are, no matter what role you serve or title you carry, your level of success is not based on the work you produce. It's not based on the projects that you manage or implement. Success is going to be based on the relationships that you build. So while we're going through this pandemic, while we're going through all this craziness going on in the world, while you're doing your best to keep up with, all the nuances in the IT world and all the recent developments, and you're trying to also balance that out with your family life, think about what's important, and that's building those relationships. So focus on building those relationships so that way you can work better with anyone, but especially those jerks. So I just want to thank you for your time on this, and I'll just stick around to see if there's any questions that you might have or any other discussions that you'd like to talk about right now. And I'm not sure where we are on time, Julan, but just let me know.
Yeah, we have time. So, one of you have any question, please unmute and ask the question. And whoever has joined on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, please put in your question on the comment section. We will take them as it comes through. So
All right,
here
well,
we have Kartikeya. Now I feel less intimidated to work with a jerk. Thank you for all the information on building successful relationships, Eric.
great, great. I'm glad that helped. And feel free to visit my website if you want some takeaways for that too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eric, for that wonderful presentation and just telling it as it is. And no
Well, thank
boundaries.
you very much.
Yeah, as much as you
Hey,
wanted to put the name out there in the title, I tried to avoid. But I like the way you just presented it as truthfully as possible. So yeah, it's so true.
thank you so much. And it was my pleasure working with you all today. And I look
No, I
forward
have
to
a
interacting with
question.
you. Just let me know if you have any questions or have anything you'd like to discuss. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you give a practical example where a company or somebody approached, I mean, a specific problem with a difficult person and a solution that you gave? If you could, one or two examples, that would be great.
Sure, sure. So sometimes, when we can spend up to 3 hours per week on top of the work that we do, dealing with conflict with other people. And this takes away from what we're trying to accomplish. And sometimes, and a lot of this can be an example like this. We can spend time gossiping about the other person, or we can do everything we can to avoid having to talk to that person, or figure out how we can respond to that person. And so one of the things that you can do is kind of what I talked about before. A lot of times we try to change other people. We focus on trying to get that person to like us, or trying to get that person to stop their jerkish behavior. The first step that you need to do is look at yourself. because you can't change other people, but you can change your own response to situations. So if you're able to recognize your emotions, figure out what you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, then that's the first step that you can do before you take that response. So then you can analyze that situation and then you can respond more accordingly. So if, for example, if you're dealing with someone who's just acting short or abrasive, you can ask something like this. Um, you can first figure, understand that this person is probably, acting rude for a certain reason. So they might have something going on. You could probably just be very matter of fact and say, is there something that's going on that's affecting you? Did I say something to offend you? Your response seems to me like I might have rubbed you the wrong way. Why would you? Or if they say something that said they say something different that's sarcastic, you might want to ask the 5 whys, which is, well, why would you say something like that? And why did that happen? And why is it? And once you continue to go down the whys and you do it up to 5 times, it really gets to the heart of the matter, and it puts the other person on defense because now they have to really explain what their actions were. And sometimes they may back away and they may say, I apologize, I didn't mean to come off that way. Or they may try to be more focused on the work itself and stay away from trying to undermine you or throw you under the bus or things like that. So I would recommend 5 whys, but also look at yourself and understand how you're feeling before you take that next step. Because 9 times out of 10, if someone rubs you the wrong way, you might shut down or you might be quick with a response that you regret. So you need to first check yourself and keep your head.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And this was like a comment given by Geeta earlier, but I think that is very true. When somebody acts very differently in front of the boss,
Mm.
we define them as, you feel that grudge inside you. I mean, he's perfectly fine, or he or she is perfectly fine with you, but in front of the boss, the action, the words that come out are very different, and sort of manipulative, and it's very difficult to tackle those difficult people. How would you take that on?
Yes, yes, I'm so glad because that happens a lot, right? We have shady characters that are nice in a one-on-one setting, right? But then when it's time to go in front of your boss, they want to make it seem like that they're more important, or they want to make you look incompetent. And so the first thing that you want to do is first, don't get caught up in that. Don't get caught up in the tit for tat because then it looks like both of you have a problem. The first thing you want to do is stay focused on what the situation is. And if by any means that person does something like this, says a rude comment or sarcastic, or says or implies something that they're not being straightforward, but are implying that you're incompetent or that you don't know what's going on, you know what you can do? Here's the most professional way that you can respond to that. And I think I mentioned a little bit earlier. You can say something like this: "What did you mean? Or what does that mean? Can you explain a little bit more so I can understand what you're saying?" Because then again, it puts them back on defense. And if you've ever seen anyone stumble or stutter their way through an explanation like that, that's really, I mean, you can look at it 2 ways. You can look at it as a hypothetical question, meaning it's not really meant for a response, but actually it is meant for a response. And when you do that, you accomplish one of two. You develop the awareness that you know what that person is trying to do, and you also put the responsibility on for that other person to explain themselves. And that does not put you in a situation where you're going tit for tat. You are having a productive, focused, professional conversation, and you're just trying to get more information and seek more clarity on what that person meant. Sometimes people will do other things that's kind of more subtle. Um, but remember, there's certain hills that you want to battle on. So not sometimes things don't require a response. It requires you to stay more focused. And let's be real here. Sometimes your boss, they see right through it. And so you have to give them some kind of credit. But if it's something subtle, it may not be worth for you to respond immediately to. But if it's something that feels, that you need to respond to, if it's something that goes against your credibility or raises questions about your competence, you might want to bring it up and say something like, well, what did you mean by that?
Right. So true. Like, yes, if you want spotlight, let's give you some.
Right, right. And it doesn't put you in a situation where you're going tit for tat if you're just looking for additional information. And
Perfect.
that's what you needed like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. Yes. Any more question or any feedback, comments? I see Satya Kiran. Okay. If we okay, Geeta says thanks for answering my question. Yes, it is so common, and we all of us feel that. Yes, Akshara says it was a great presentation. Thank you, Akshara. Yeah.
Great. Just the last thing I do just I will share too. I didn't mention it at all, but I've got any tips and anything that you want are in the book. If you'd like a signed copy of it, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to mail you a signed copy of it. You can also get it on Amazon too. If you want to understand all the other tips that give you real practical tips to address your situations or any situation that you might encounter, whether it's a peer or whether it's an executive or whether it's your boss, these tips in the book are going to help you do that. Very practical and plain language, no nonsense. It's exactly what you need to deal with your immediate situation. So definitely let me know if you'd like a signed copy of it, or feel free to get it on Amazon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Kartikeya also says thank you. Yeah. So we have our webinar for youth by the youth and for the parents and youth as well. We have that tomorrow from 12 to 1 p.m. EST. It's Let Us Talk It Youth series. And if you want to be part of it, or any other professional webinars, please do email us at webinar@letustalkit.com. Trust me, for the youth series, tomorrow's topic is online schooling. Many of the kids have already started their schooling, many will join. So if you are in this webinar, you can share, you can hear from the kids what they are facing right now, the difficulties, the benefits, and we would be extremely happy if you join in and share your difficulties or benefits or how you have coped something with. And the kids, for the first time we have a fifth grader joining in the youth series, so we are extremely excited. Yes. And we have these professional webinars on work and life every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 12 to 1 p.m. EST, and the youth series Fridays from 12 to 1 p.m. EST, all same time. So with that, thank you, Eric, so much for that wonderful presentation, lively, full of information, and a solution at the end. So nothing better than that. Yeah. Thank you so
Hey,
much, and thank you, attendees.
thank you for having me. You'll have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, attendees, for joining in with us today. Thank you all that have joined in on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you tomorrow at 12, and have a great day. Thank you. Bye bye.